I want to build my own house.
I knew you were going to ask this question.
So, can you take me through that process? And where do you come in? How much do architects make?
It depends a lot. What salary, you mean?
What should my budget be for it to be worth your time doing the project?
It's yeah, there's a lot of satisfaction at the end of it, but it's a long process. I'm not sure if I recommend it.
So when you sit down and look back in your career, what's the biggest learning experience that you have had being an architect?
I think because I don't.
So, welcome back to Make Your Own Destiny podcast, the podcast that inspires you to shape your future. So, if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're the OG on this channel, please smash the like button for me, please. Anyways, today we're with a very special guest. I know you guys have never seen an architect on this podcast. So today we have an architect with a lot of years of experience. His name is Architect Ruzel. Most of you have probably seen him from social media. He has been going viral a lot of times. So we are with Ruzel himself here. I'll let him introduce himself. Architect Ruzel.
Hi, how you doing? Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm good. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to be with you today because
Me too.
I've always wanted to learn about architect. Myself, I'm a banker,
Okay.
and I did banking and finance, so that's like my profession. So I know nothing about architecture. So I'm a layman, and I guess a lot of people who are watching are also laymen.
Yeah.
And on this podcast, we focus on giving value to people, educating to people about other fields of life.
Mhm.
Yeah, the goal is just someone will come and watch this video and say, okay, I came on a podcast and I learned something about architecture. Yeah. So can you give me a little bit of your background, like who is Architect yourself?
Yeah, well, it takes a long time to be an architect. It's like being a doctor or a lawyer. You have to get a license and stuff. So it's around 5 years full-time study and at least 2 years practical work experience. Then you have to take exams. It varies from country to country. So, but most countries are the same, really. So you need a license. That's what's the most important thing about being an architect, really. So I started off. I was kind of good at drawing, and I did design at school, and he said I had a talent for design. Then I think how it started was my parents took me to New York. I think when I was about 16, and seeing the tall buildings there kind of inspired me. And I remember one of the first drawings I drew at school was this building in town, historical building, and I remember drawing the windows and the details and stuff on the drawing, and that kind of, I think that's probably the first initial thing I got into buildings. Then I had to choose what to choose, and I couldn't decide, and you're young at that age, you're only like 17, 18. It's difficult to decide, but I chose architecture in the end. I thought of maybe graphics design or something. I like drawing on the computer, so that kind of pushed me a bit, because I knew a lot of it would be drawing on the computer. So yeah, it's a good thing because it's a solid tunnel. You're going to be an architect and you go all the way. It's not like you can drift off to different other careers if you want, but it's nice to have like one focus. Okay, I'm going to be an architect, and then go for it. And then it's a long and hard career path, but when you get there, it's quite satisfying. It takes lots of years experience once you get registered, though. That's the thing. The money and stuff doesn't really come until you've got a lot of years work experience. Like I'm only starting to get a lot of experience now and starting to get paid a bit better now, and I've only been working like 15 years since I became licensed, so it takes a lot. It takes about that time to get money and get some responsibility, they let you have responsibility. You got to have a lot of experience, because it's not all about design and building, it's about safety as well. That's why you need a license. So it's a lot of responsibility, designing buildings, protecting the environment, make sure you're designing, respecting the local culture, things like that. So it's a lot of, it's a long journey. It's been a long journey, and it still will be, I think.
You're from the UK, right?
Yeah.
So it means you studied architecture in the UK.
Yeah.
Okay. When I asked you about being an architect, you talked more about designing and drawing. So is that what architect is about, designing and drawing?
Yeah. And also, like I said, it's to do with safety and professionalism as well. If you're a qualified architect, you have to learn about that. Safety is important. Technical is like technology, how buildings put together.
Okay.
As well. It's not just drawing. There's design. To be honest, it's only about 5% design. The rest of it is making it work, technical stuff, documentation, doing all the dimensions and drawing it in detail, how it's built. Basically, it's your job to present or communicate how the building is going to be built as well, not just the overall how it looks. People think you just you just design something how a building looks, that's it, but it's not. It's how the building is put together. You also have to coordinate with a lot of engineers, like different types of engineers, structural engineer with all the columns and beams. You have to make sure that's working with the design. So you have to check their drawings, their design, then you have to check the electrical engineer drawings and work with the electrical engineer where all the lights go. So you out of all those engineers and other designers, like maybe a landscape designer, it depends on what project. Your architect's traditionally the lead designer, so you have to approve all the other engineers' drawings as well. So it's your design. So structural engineer may design the columns and beams, but you got to check that, and if you don't like it, you have to tell him. So there's a lot of coordination as well. So it's not just design is quite a small part of it, really.
Okay. So there's a lot that goes into doing that.
Yeah, it's quite arty at the beginning. At university, they try and get you a bit creative, because it's your job to create something from scratch.
Yeah.
So you do a lot of that, but then when you go to work, you learn more the practical side of it as well.
So let's say I want to build my own house.
I knew you were going to ask this question.
So a lot of people, I'm sure, have never built a house.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people who are watching have never built a house. So they don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
So can you take me through that process?
Yeah, that's a good
And where do
question.
you come in?
Yeah, go to an architect. The first thing is to do, really. Don't go to an engineer, because they don't design buildings. Well, they can, but they're not trained to design buildings, really. It depends what engineer you go to as well. So an architect guides the client all the way through. He'll tell you what you need to do. From the moment you pick your site, your land, you can speak to an architect, a registered architect. So there's a registered board of local architects. It's called Tanzania one is Architect and Surveyors Board, License Board.
Okay.
So you can find an architect on that list, and then you can show him the site, and he'll kind of guide you through it, the whole project. Depends on what you want. So he'll advise you what you can do on the site from the beginning.
Okay.
He'll tell you if you can fit he'll start off doing a small sketch for you or something, see if it's feasible, what you want, how many bedrooms you want. He'll ask you how many rooms, like a schedule of accommodation,
Okay.
what your budget is and stuff, whether you can fit that in. And then he'll design something for you based on what you want. And first of all, he might give you like rough price, how much it's going to cost, because you at the beginning, depends how big it is, he might work out like how many USD per square meter. So Tanzania it can range from about 500 USD to $1,000 per square meter. So the smaller the house, the cheaper it is, if you know what I mean. But it depends on quality as well. And then he'll probably appoint other consultants as well through you. So maybe an engineer, surveyor, survey the land, and builder as well. Or alternatively, you can go to that's one way of doing it. There's several ways to do it. You could go to a builder, like a one-stop shop. The builder may have architects working for him, but they might not specialize as much. So there's lots of ways to do it, but traditionally, yeah, you go to an architect and then they'll guide you through the process.
Okay.
So feasibility study, which will be if the project's feasible. Then there's a different it's kind of stages of design. So feasibility study, then there'll be a concept design. So he'll do a basic plan and 3D of what it will look like. And when that's ready, you kind of get a price, how much it's going to cost, a more realistic price.
Okay.
Then you can go to a builder and they'll give you a price as well, how much to build it. Then you design it in a bit more. When you're happy with that basic design, the architect will design it in more detail. So he'll start doing the sizes, construction details, how the roof's put together, and basically adding more layers of detail on the drawings. You might want some fancy details and stuff like that, some interior details. So it's kind of layering on the detail more and more.
Yeah.
Alternatively, a lot of people do in Tanzania as well. Some people, this is happening a lot. They get the architect do the basic concept,
Yeah.
and then they take that and then they give that to a builder, and then they finish off the design. But disadvantages of that, you're not having the same architect going all the way through the project, so the quality might go down a bit if you do that.
Okay.
So there's different ways of doing it, but that's kind of the idea, really. Yeah.
What are the common mistakes that people do when they don't want, let's say, they don't want to hire an architect? I'll give you one example. You know, one of our neighbors here, I think, is about 10th plot from here. They bought a land. You know, the ocean is very close to the studio. They bought a land, and then they built a very big project. Probably it was like villas, like 2-floor villas. There are almost 20 buildings. And then, unfortunately, they built them. They reached to the roof. But then they noticed that during rainy season, the whole place gets flooded. At the end of the day, the whole place gets flooded. So if you can pass by, you even see like there are cars that are dipped in the mud. So they even had cars around. They all get dipped in the mud. It's been 10 years, and that project has been abandoned till today. But there are more than 20 buildings. I don't know if they hired an architect or an engineer. So how do people avoid mistakes like this? Or who was at fault? Who was supposed to give a go-ahead or for them to build that place?
I mean, it could be a number of reasons. It could be the slope of the road. It could be the builder. So it could be anyone. It could be an architect if they had one. It could be engineer. It could be the builder. It could be everybody's. Likely everybody's responsibility. But it sounds like it's just poor planning, basically.
Okay.
There's a lot of thinking involved in projects. There's so much detail, like I said, to put on the drawings. You put the slope, you put the material of it. You got to specify exactly what the road's going to be made of. You have a plumbing engineer to do all the drainage. You put all the drainage on the drawings, where the gutters, where the surface water drains are, how it's going to drain, the slope, where's it going to go. You do drawings for all that. Like before you build it, you don't just make it up. A lot of people just make it up as they go along. They want it too quickly. They build it too quickly, and then they don't realise. So it's mostly down to thinking and planning before you do it, really. Otherwise, once you've built it, especially concrete, once you've built it, it's difficult to remove it afterwards, you know. And then you spent all that money, and you got no money left to remove it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's probably just poor planning, poor design, really.
There's a saying that say that uh, failing to plan is planning to fail.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's very, very important to plan before you do anything. Yeah, anyways, behind the camera, I asked you a question that how long have you been in Tanzania? And you told me 10 years?
10 years, yeah. It's just past 10 years, yeah.
Okay, and you're from the UK?
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I worked before here. I worked in Australia for 2.5 years. Then before that, I worked in Thailand for 2 years.
Okay.
So I've been away about 15 years.
Okay. So you've been in the game for a long time. 15 years is a lot. Yeah.
So like I more or less after I became licensed in the UK, I more or less left straight after, because that was around the time of the recession.
Okay.
Yeah, so I left, which is a bit weird because finally get the license after studying so long, and then I left.
So after the recession, there were no jobs in the UK, architecture jobs?
I got made redundant, and so did a lot of other people. Yeah,
Okay.
not many jobs. Yeah,
So it
because
means
the recession is usually linked to the construction industry. Yeah, if people have got no money, then they're not going to build anything. Yeah.
So the recession was in 2008?
Something like that. Yeah, 15 years ago. Yeah.
It's very crazy how a single calamity like that can make a lot of people lose their jobs.
Yeah, I always wanted to leave the country anyway, so just to push out the door. They gave me redundancy money as well, so.
Oh. So, talking about jobs and recession and people losing their jobs, recently there has been a rise of artificial intelligence, and it has been affecting a lot of sectors. For example, let's say a lot of people who were doing copywriting or who were writing scripts, all of a sudden or overnight, right now we can just go, let's say, to just ChatGPT or Gemini AI, just enter a prompt, and here you are. You have a whole script. Or if you want to do a drawing, I don't know how is it in architecture. So how has AI helped you or affected you in the architecture field?
Yes, I've been using the Mid-Journey software a lot, which creates images for you, which is pretty cool. I've been getting some good ideas from that. So it gets quite challenging to come up with like initial idea of what it's kind of going to look like. So I sometimes use that nowadays. So if I got a project like this one I'm doing at the moment in town, I got the inspiration. I came up with the idea like it's in Masaki area, which is near the cliffs, and I had an idea of creating something like a broken rock or something, because it's like inspired from the cliff. So I was typing in like broken rock building, Dar es Salaam cliff face, and it pumps out images of buildings, realistic buildings of like rock inspired. So it gives you starts giving you some ideas, not exactly, but it just starts to get the creative ideas flowing. There was another one in Zanzibar. It was like auditorium I was working on. So I was searching AI for like Swahili Zanzibar vibe auditorium for hotel, and it was giving me some images, and I gave showed some to the client, and they liked one. I go, yeah, they were like, because I didn't have time to do anything, and I showed him a couple of images, and he liked one. He goes, oh yeah, like that. So then I went from there, which is quite handy. There's some new ones I've seen as well. You can do a sketch, and you scan that in, put it in, and it'll make a 3D, quite realistic 3D photograph of a building, which is quite good. So if you just draw a line just like a 2-minute sketch of a shape of a skyscraper or something. I don't know, shape like that or something. It'll give you a skyscraper, like a real image of a skyscraper shaped like
all on
that.
Midjourney.
This is another software, I can't remember the name, but Midjourney is just text.
Okay.
But there's some new ones out now. You can actually put your sketch in, and it'll translate that to like a photograph, which is pretty cool. Yeah, but I don't think it's not going to replace the design process. It'll just help and speed things up.
Okay.
I think that's happening to most industries, really. It's not replacing it, it's just helping and speeding things up.
Okay. So, for the time that you have been in Tanzania and in Dar es Salaam, or even in Australia, what are the most notable projects that you have been involved in so far?
Obviously, my first one in Tanzania, the Luminary, which is in Masaki, opposite Ecuador restaurant. It's a 5-story office building. That was the first green building, LEED rated green building in the country.